Welcome, Eric Wooten, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. So today I have you on as a relationship coach, and this is something that's going to be especially prominent right now because we're getting close to Valentine's Day, and we need to make sure that we have someone to squeeze, someone to cuddle, someone to be with, someone that we can call our own. I know the work that you do is not just simply helping people find relationships, but cultivating healthy, long-lasting relationships. And, without me kind of going into your whole history and backstory, please tell the world who you are and how you help.
Sure. Yeah. Eric Wooten, as you said, I have, probably a couple decades at this point, working with couples and helping. I'm a licensed counselor. And a couple years ago, just in time for the pandemic, decided to launch my own relationship organization, Altered Marriage. And so, yeah, help dating couples or dating individuals navigate the dating landscape today. I do a lot of premarital counseling and work a lot with married couples, offering classes, membership community, weekend retreats, you name it, to help people develop strong relationships.
Well, let's start to break down the idea of a relationship because I think so many people have a misunderstanding of what a relationship is because we have our dating apps and we can go on Tinder, we can go on Bumble, we can talk to all these different people, and we can go on 1 date, 2 dates, and then we ghost someone, right? So dating is very easy nowadays versus when I was younger, you would have to go out to the mall, find someone you enjoyed, and then you would cultivate that relationship. But now it's just a simple swipe. I'm going to swipe right because I like you. I'm going to swipe left because I don't like you, right? It's starting to affect how people look at relationships. Relationships are easy, they can be easily thrown away. So I want to talk about that idea with the younger generation first.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. It's easy. I'd almost say it's easy and more difficult, right? It's easy to locate somebody these days, right? With social media apps, and that may be a problem too because we have too many options. And at some point, if you always maybe have a fear of settling down when you go, there might be something better, might be something better. Which, like you said, back in the day, I probably if you wind back to 1930s, 40s, not that we want to go back there, but most people married somebody that lived within, 5, 8 blocks of them because it was somebody you knew or somebody you ran the neighborhood with. And so, I think there's a benefit to being able to use technology to find people that you may never have run into. But at the same time, like you said, I think it can dehumanize it when you just flip it on a screen and swiping and swiping and picking and talking and being whoever you want to be. And the ability to create a fictitious profile of who you are and present that on the front makes it difficult for people. So I think there's easier aspects to it. But I also think it's become a lot more difficult because people don't know if they can trust what they see, don't know if they can trust what they hear, and sometimes it takes a little while to get to see them in person to verify these things. So yeah, I think it's easier in some sense and much more difficult, in another sense.
When we look at the younger generation, because they're going to be really diving into these apps, not saying that the older generation, 30s, 40s, 50s, are not going to be using these apps also, but the younger generation are going to be using this as their prime way for dating. They're going to go on, and whenever they're bored, they're just going to go on and start swiping. Maybe they find someone and they can cultivate something, but most of the times it's kind of just a waste of time for them. They're just like, well, I'm just trying to waste some time. Similar to how they can watch TikTok videos or YouTube videos. They just go on and it's a simple indulgence and entertainment rather than finding something fulfilling. Do you think our younger generation has lost the concept of what a relationship truly means?
I think well, there's probably two answers to this. I'll come back to the second one. The first one is I think we've lost skills of relationship, right? What I'm hearing, in fact, I had a date, I've got a singles community. I did a dating class and then we created a little community where we get together once a month and they have interactions. And so we had our kind of Christmas Zoom call not too long ago, and so we were talking about that, and a lot of the women are frustrated because they feel like the guy's got nothing to say. Their comments were, "I'm tired of hello, beautiful, good morning, beautiful." It's like, do you have anything else to bring to the table? And so that's where I think we are noticing the swiping and the fit everything into 150 words or less and all the abbreviations and And I think we've lost the ability to relate, interact, carry conversations, ask meaningful questions. Now there's a lot of tools you can use if you suck at that, right? Go download some questions to ask your date and liven it up a little bit. But I think we've lost some of the skills on the one side. And then I think we're in a world now where so much of the advice out, the relationship advice, whether it's dating advice and, kind of marriage advice, is ineffective. The dating, if you go Google, tips on dating, you're going to get all kinds of game playing and stupid stuff that doesn't actually translate into the skills you need for a long-term relationship. And so I think we're setting people up for failure now by, one, allowing them to have these, quick interactions with no depth where they don't know how to have a deeper conversation. And then we're giving a lot of advice that just simply doesn't work. From my perspective, when you look at a long-term relationship, it may work to play a dating game for a little while, but once you settle down, the skills that you used in dating just aren't going to work in a relationship.
You brought up some interesting topics, right? The idea of we don't have the skills necessary to have a conversation, right? It stems from critical thinking, and it also stems from the ability to be cordial, right? To have a cordial conversation with someone. You and me, we probably can have a conversation, and most likely we're not going to be like, I hate you at the end of the conversation, right? The cordiality aspect of it. However, when we start to just look at someone on the internet, we think of like a chat room type of mentality. Well, I'm going to be a keyboard warrior, so I'm going to say whatever I want. So these men maybe are just like, hey, beautiful. And maybe they get a response. Maybe they don't. They're doing it to 100 different ladies. Eventually, they're going to get a response from someone, especially if they're lonely and they're just looking for someone. So, of course, that aspect is going to work, but they have to send a lot more messages. But it doesn't create that deep, meaningful conversation, right? Because there's no critical thinking involved. We're just using the probability effect, right? I'm going to just send 100 or 1,000 messages, and I know someone's going to respond. And it's very true. So these women, I'm sure that you're dealing with, are saying that men don't know how to be men nowadays. They don't know how to be chivalrous. Why do they have to be if they can get their sex that they want, basically, and not need to put in all the hard work?
Right. No, I agree. So when because even, when you do, for the most part, you do a dating class, you do a singles event, it's going to be 90% women. They're the ones interested in developing the skills and trying to figure out how to build a healthy relationship. And I think a lot of it goes to what you say, man. You got these dudes that, they just want to have sex. So they're just going to get on here and keep swiping and poking and swiping and poking, and somebody will bite at some point. And then it's a lot easier to deal with rejection on a computer screen than it is face to face. And so it just kind of allows you to sit back passively and fire away and, hope something happens. But I think if people are looking for a long-term relationship at some point, that's not how you're going to get there.
We have two paths we can go on, and I'm going to allow you to choose which path to go on.
Okay, a little choose your own adventure here. All right.
This is going to be great. So we can go into the idea of, okay, now how do we have those relationships? Or I guess we ask people, okay, well, if you want to find these healthy relationships, how do we do that? Or we can go down the path of, if we're looking for a type of individual, for example, a woman is looking for a manly man who's going to respect her and do all of those things, where would she look? So we have two options. Where would that woman look for a relationship now? Because online dating is going to be slim pickings, especially after we just had that conversation. Or talking about the mindset of a relationship and what is needed to cultivate that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go where to find one first, and then we can come back to, because I think the mindset one's a big one. I think part of our problem is we have set unrealistic and unhealthy expectation for what relationship is supposed to look like. And so people are trying to find something that, I would say it this way, we've over romanticized relationship. So now people are looking for something with a wrong mindset. And I think there's a lot of things we could talk about down that road, but where would somebody find one? I still think apps are an option. What you're going to have to do is try a variety of different apps to find what works for you. Because I know some people that swear by one app and somebody else is like, that was terrible for me. And other people are like, hey, Facebook dating worked for me. And somebody else goes, nah, that's terrible. And so I think it's almost like anything else. It's so individualized. You need to research which ones would fit you best. Try a few of them for a period of time, and weed people out that are doing the dumb stuff you're not interested in. You can be pretty specific about what you do and don't want. And going back to the laziness factor, it's my belief, if a woman wants to avoid the guys who are just trying to get laid, the pictures you put on there, the stuff you put in your profile, if you're pretty clear that that's not what you're looking for as a guy, I'm going to take the path of least resistance. So I'm not, if I got two profiles sitting in front and one's, she's in a bikini in 5 pictures and the other one's, wearing turtlenecks and jackets and one says I'm not having sex and the other one says love to party. If I'm looking for sex, I'm probably not going to do the hard work to try to get the other one to get there. So I think you can create a profile, be on the right apps to make your chances better. But if you don't want dating apps, there's a ton of stuff you can do, right? What things you like to do, activities, whether it's dancing or painting, or find groups that do the stuff you like to do and get involved with that. You already have a common passion and you can often meet people there. I think going to the same places regularly, if it's a restaurant, if it's a bar, if it's Starbucks, if you go somewhere weekly, regularly, you will tend to run into the same people. I go to Starbucks often just to work. I see the same people. Now, I don't talk to them a whole lot because I'm there with headphones in trying to get work. But if I want to cultivate some level of community, I can find those people all day long. And so I think going to the same places, a lot of cities have activity groups, singles groups that get together and do stuff once a month and different things. I think that's a great place to find it. Some people, church is a great place to find it. So I think you can find a lot of places to go meet people in person if you're really anti-app. But I think you could also work the apps to your advantage and find somebody. And then just network, man. It used to be that, hey, I go on a date with somebody and they're not for me, but you would be great for my cousin, or I got a friend I think you would totally click with. And so just getting out there and getting your numbers up, and if you've got a group of people who are doing that, you may find people for each other. And so, yeah, I think there's a number of ways you can try to go find somebody, but you got to get your numbers up. It's a kind of like you said, people swiping and just shooting their shot numbers. It's also a numbers game trying to get dates. You can't sit around going, hey, hopefully the one will just come along when it's my time. You got to get out there and meet some people.
Dating apps are a tool, right? A tool for you to meet people, similar to how you can go out and put yourself in a good environment. So you're going to Starbucks, so you're going to be surrounding yourself with people who maybe like coffee, maybe have similar interests, maybe entrepreneurs, right? Have a business, right? They go to Starbucks to get away to do some work. So that could be a great environment, right? If you like reading books, so maybe go to the library, if they have a book club, joining things. I know there was an app called Meetup that was very popular in 2010 area around that time. It's been maybe not as popular now since the pandemic because people have been so recluse. They just stay inside and they don't want to go out and meet people. And so dating apps are kind of like their go-to now to do things. So everything can be done over Zoom, it seems like. So, let's have a meetup on Zoom. It's like, okay, that's not truly a meetup, right? And you can create a better relationship just in person. So like if you can put yourself out there more than just saying, okay, I'm going to stay home, go on this dating app, you're going to have better results because you're going to, of course, increase your skills too. Because yes, we can do that copy and paste thing. We can search Google for conversation starters. But if it's not true to you, you're just going to be basically pretending who you are. Like, be honest, right? There's an aspect of that too, right? We have to look at too. But one of the things you said was the difference between easy prey and maybe difficult prey, where if someone has turtlenecks on and jackets and maybe business attire and they're like, I'm all about my work, etc., don't waste my time, guy's probably like, okay, I'm not going to waste your time. Or he's going to waste your time, just here's a copy and paste message, but he's going to look at the girl with the bikini pictures, things like that. And it gets us into the conversation of traditional and modern. And it could be a very rabbit hole conversation because traditional is your stay-at-home wife and your modern is like your woman who's going to go out, be a boss bitch, make all the money, things like that, take care of her own, protect, provide, be Miss Independent. Guys will see that and they say, well, since you're able to do everything, the only thing I want is sex. So guys will look at those modern girls, give her what she wants in the beginning, and then just slowly fade away once they got what they wanted. Versus a guy who's truly looking for a traditional girl, he's more apt to stay in that relationship. Do you think the idea of modern women today or modern feminism is helping women find dates and long, healthy, lasting relationships?
Probably not. Probably not. It's yeah, like you say, this could be a rabbit hole of many, of what's okay. And here's, I think, one of our problems today, not just in relationship, but across the board. Instead of being rational and logical and seeing some value in opposing sides, we've swung the pendulum so far to extremes in everything, right? Politics now, nobody who is somewhat moderate is ever going to rise up on either side in politics because nobody will back them, right? And so all we've got is extreme left, extreme right, and we just keep swinging further apart. I think it's the same conversation. We do that relationally, right? And so, what do women want? Are there women who, do want to be cared for, covered, protect, kind of the traditional sense, right? The man, provides and covers, and that, I think there's probably a lot of women that would enjoy that. But I think you're almost shamed for that now, right? That's going to put you in a bad position. And so again, here's a perfect example of a relational pendulum swing, right? We have codependency, which is unhealthy, right? So there's been a lot done around codependency, and especially most of it was originally around families and substance abuse and some stuff like that, where it is very effective in understanding how to avoid that and set boundaries. But because codependency is so bad, we've swung the pendulum all the way over to the other side to independency, where if I were to say, well, I'm about to say, so if someone were to take the soundbite that's about to come out and just put it out there, there will be a lot of people that refute it. So I would say we have a need to depend on other people to get some of our needs met. And people would go, oh my, you can't depend on someone. If you depend on someone, they can control you and they can hurt you and so, but it's a biological fact that we depend on others. So now our psychological relational approach does not hold water biologically. And so there's been study after study, right, from the orphans in the Romanian, foster care system that never get touched, and, failure to thrive stuff, that we need stuff. There's proof that when you get into an intimate relationship with another person, that your blood levels and your heart rate and hormones begin to regulate each other together. There's been, the MRI test where they put a woman in an MRI and measure her heartbeat, and with nobody there, it's a certain level. With a stranger holding her hand, it comes down a little bit, but if they have a partner holding their hand, it's almost non-existent when they look at, heart rate increase and that kind of stuff. So we do have a dependency in relationship with one another, and it's a healthy thing. It's good for us. And so I think this whole independence, right? Some of it is born out of pain. I was dependent on the man, and, the man did me wrong and left me. And now I'm sitting out here with, no work skills, and I can't take care of myself. And so I think born out of pain, there's I'm going to be independent. You get those personal oaths of, I'm never going to have to depend on a man. I'm not going to need anybody in my life. And then you also see generations where grandma and mama raised you and we didn't need men. And I've counseled, a lot of women who have even said that. My grandma and mom raised me and told me you don't need a man for nothing but love. So if he's not loving you, get rid of him. And I think all of that message is breeding so much independence that a lot of people are having a hard time to find a relationship, because we view depending on another person on any level as bad, as putting you in a vulnerable position, when it's actually healthy. It's necessary for us. And if you're wise in who you select, and you're getting to know people, and you're avoiding clear red flags and stuff, you're fine. You can avoid the people who will ultimately damage you and do things to you and manipulate you. But I think that's one of those areas where the quote traditional versus modern, a lot of people, it's just standard of living, right? Where you happen to live, you live in a big city, almost to have the standard of living you want, you almost need husband and wife working. So some of it's standard of living. I get that. But I think some of it has swung into I'm not going to depend on anybody for anything. I'm going to make my own. And when you create that level of independence, one, it's hard to give it up. And two, you're almost shamed for the thought of wanting to be traditional and just go, I can do my own, but it's also nice to have somebody I can depend on who can cover me. So I think it's a little of both.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's like the mindset of, if it's broken, just change it. So we look at a relationship that's not working out. Well, I'm not going to even bother. So let's get a divorce. And if we look at the divorce rate, 70% of divorces here in the West are going to be initiated by women. Why is that, right? Because they're so quick to understand, well, my emotions are not being met. And of course, I'm not saying that there's not red flags there, right? I'm not saying that he's not supporting you. Maybe he could be abusive. He could have bad habits, alcohol, drugs, things like that, right? Addictive things that are not good for the relationships. But there's going to be a good majority that look at the relationship saying, well, I'm not happy. Well, you're not fulfilling me. Well, you know what? There's another guy, right? There's probably something better out there for me. So they're always looking at, well, this relationship is not perfect. Let me look for perfect. Do you think the idea of perfectionism has started to tarnish relationships?
Yeah, I think our expectation for what we think a relationship is supposed to be puts us in a bad place. I mean, it's like anything else. If you have an expectation and your experience does not meet the expectation, right in that gap, we begin to create our own narratives. And so, I mean, listen, if we're really honest, our model of marriage and relationship, has been spit on us by Disney, right? The strong man who rides in and, saves said woman and, the romance. So between romance novels and movies and Hollywood, and we've created an image of what marriage and relationship is supposed to be that is not realistic. Like you just said, a lot of people divorce because they go, man, I'm not happy, or we can't resolve these differences. And second and third marriages have higher divorce rates for obvious reasons. All you did was select a new set of problems. It's still you. And so I believe part of our problem in marriage is one, a dating problem. Like our preparation is not preparing us for the game we're getting in. And so it's like if you're practicing one way and then you get in the game and the practice skills don't work in the game, you're like, dang, well, this relationship doesn't work. We must have chosen wrong. So I think we got a preparation problem. But then I think we also have a perspective problem in the relationship where, listen, when you marry somebody, you sign up for a specific set of unresolvable issues. You will never resolve these, whether it's, personality differences, some lifestyle preferences, introvert, extrovert, saver, spender, sleep routine, need for closeness, need for independence, wanting to do fun, adventurous activities versus, want to chill at home and be calm. A lot of those differences, you will never fully resolve those in marriage. And so, a lot of the work I do with married couples is just helping them manage their differences. So I call it closing the gap. And the idea is just, we got a gap in this area, whether it's our parenting style, whether it's our, introversion, extroversion, whatever it might be. You're not going to find a meet in the middle 50-50 compromise on many of the differences right. The introvert extrovert is not going to settle on, we go out 1.293 times per week and we're both super happy. You don't. You learn to take a step towards each other, say, listen, I don't necessarily think like you do or enjoy the same things in this area, but because I value you, I want to step towards you in this area. And the other person makes a step towards you and you close that gap. You're not going to meet in the middle. Probably never will meet in the middle and find a 50-50 compromise. But if you step towards each other, the gap becomes smaller. The conflict that can occur in that gap becomes smaller. And so for a lot of people, they're like, man, this sucks. Let me go find somebody else. You'll definitely, usually the second time, pick a different set of problems because you already know these ones don't work for me, but you're still getting a new set of unresolvable issues in this new marriage that you're going to have to learn to navigate. And so I just think we've set ourselves up for failure by creating an image of what we think it's supposed to be. And then when we get in marriage and our experience is different, our conclusion is, dang, pick the wrong person. We can never make this work. Let me go ahead and get out. And that's everything. Chemistry, right? We believe that talking and dating and sex and everything inside of marriage that we think should be there should just happen organically and naturally and spontaneously if we're in a happy relationship. And the reality is it's not about chemistry. It's about intentionality, right? If we believe sex is important to the relationship and it's not happening regularly, then we need to schedule it. And some people go, if you got to schedule it, then you must not care about each other. No, you're busy. Two people working and kids. And what's the realistic chance in marriage if you both have jobs, you have kids who activities, you got to work on the house, you got animals. What's the chance that whether it's sex, whether it's having a meaningful conversation, whether it's cuddling on the couch, what's the chance that the two of you will pass by each other, both wanting to do that very thing, both full of energy to do whatever that thing is at the exact same time. I mean, it's not realistic. And so I think the image that we have in our mind of what it's supposed to look like is not realistic, which is setting up a lot of people for, deciding that this can't work and we messed up.
Yeah. And we do have that perception of what a relationship is just from watching our sitcoms, Disney,
Oh
as you
yeah.
said. Everything is perfect in those things, in those videos. And then even in like, three-fourths of the way in the movie, something happens, but they get back together, no book, so there's always that fix at the end, but there's a hurdle. And I think people just see the happiness at the end. So they're like, I should have this, not the in-between stuff. So if you argue, if you're having financial troubles, instead of supporting each other, you see the person as, okay, well, you're the culprit. You're the reason why we're in this situation. So I need to get rid of you. I need to get rid of this idea that I have given myself that, okay, this is not going to work. And a lot of people have that, right? They have the idea of, okay, well, if a person is like this, a red flag. If a person does this, red flag, right? So it's like they give themselves so many red flags where that can happen in the stint of a marriage, even a relationship, where a person might be starting a business and then they go in financial woes, right? Belly up, right? They have to go bankrupt. Well, maybe that person is going to have a previous marriage or something like that, the spouse, and they're going to say, well, my previous spouse, they had money issues and it wasn't good. So I'm going to abandon ship, right? So people are quick to leave because something is not perfect. But a relationship is going to be far from perfect. And there's going to be days when you want to wring each other's necks, but you have to understand what is the big purpose for this marriage, for the relationship. And I think people, they just don't give themselves a purpose for the relationship. And from there, they're just like, well, I'm just going through this relationship because I'm thinking a relationship should make me happy. It should bring some type of fulfillment and we should be working on a common goal. When that person is not responsible for your happiness, they're not responsible for your fulfillment, and your goals are your own goals. Now, you can have common goals, right? So, for example, let's say you want to go on vacation together to Europe, plan it, right? If you want to maybe buy a house together, plan it, right? It's just not something that you simply say, well, I want to buy a house and you just leave your partner out of it, right? You have to have an understanding of what are you working for together and what are you looking for separate. And so many people, I think they just kind of look at, well, my partner's not giving me what I want. And that's where it really begins. And I think you said something really great where we lack the preparation skills in our dating. And then we lack the preparation skills in our relationships for marriage. What would be some ideal preparation skills to learn in those three phases, in your dating phase, in your relationship phase, and then in your marriage phase to help someone be successful in those three areas?
Yeah, I think dating, first of all, you got to be healthy, right? One of the issues in a lot of marriages is individuals have not done the work of getting as healthy as they can personally. And so if I've got some past childhood or relationship wounds and trauma I've never dealt with, it's going to prevent me from relating in a marriage in a healthy way, right? I'm going to, if I've got abandonment, rejection issues, I'm going to be highly defensive anytime my spouse suggests even anything critical that may be accurate. I'm not going to receive that feedback because, I live from a place of rejection. And so I think, individually dating, you got to be healthy. We're never all the way there, right? So hear me in that. It's not like there's some level of healthy perfection where I'm ready to date. But you got to be actively working on your stuff. If there's baggage from the past you need to deal with, if there's stuff that's impacting, your choices in relationships and how you relate and all that thing. So I think for dating people, the first step is get healthy. And then you're gonna have a lot better time evaluating potential partners, seeing red flags, setting healthy boundaries, doing all the stuff that's needed in a relationship if you're doing it from a healthy place. So I think for daters, you got to get healthy first. And then I think, just some basic stuff is don't date alone. You got to know when we get infatuated and emotionally involved, we're going to miss stuff. And so, that's why you got friends. That's why you got family. That's why you got community. Get some other people involved. I see too often people kind of dating in isolation. They go find somebody and it's them and that person 24/7 and they don't have time for anybody else. And you're just going to flat out be willing to overlook stuff or you're going to miss stuff when your emotions are wrapped up. So I think you need another set of eyes on it can also be helpful. And then, we could go through 177 red flags to watch out for, everything from the way they handle finances to the relationships they have in their life. But I think the other thing you got to know in dating is it takes a while to get to know somebody. And we think, I know a lot of people that think, 1 month, 2 months in, oh man, they're so great. Listen, people's patterns aren't going to come out anywhere under 3 months for sure. 3 to 6 months is probably when you really start seeing people's patterns and that kind of stuff. So I would say for daters, slow it down, slow it down, take your time, watch out for some of the red flags, get some other people involved. There's millions of books that have been written on boundaries in dating and watching for red flags. And so there's plenty of material to help you do that. I think once you've got somebody and you think you may be moving towards marriage, I believe everybody should do some level of premarital counseling. You don't need to be engaged with a wedding date. If you've been dating a while, do it then. It's a lot easier to break off a relationship before you've got a ring and a date planned, and all that embarrassment of canceling that may come in. And so if you've been seriously dating somebody for, a while, 9 months, a year or something, you guys are like talking like this could go further, I would say go get some premarital counseling. Get somebody to help you, force you to ask questions and have conversations that you either don't know to have or don't want to have. And then the other thing for me is I'm thinking long-term for marriage. If you've got somebody who is unwilling to do premarital counseling, like I don't need anybody else in my relationship, I don't, that should be a huge red flag, because you already discovered if you get married to them, somewhere down the road, you guys get stuck, which will happen to every couple. They've already told you they're not willing to get outside help. So you're going to be isolated and stuck. And so I think not only will premarital counseling help you really evaluate and prepare for marriage, or realize this is not the person you should be marrying for a variety of reasons, it also sets you up to know, hey, we're both open. Should we get stuck somewhere down the road to somebody else having input in our lives? So that's what I'd say for dating and, single dating, and then dating for a while, preparing for marriage. And then what was your question about marriage? Just what are the skills for that,
or like the preparation to have a good, healthy relationship, as in marriage?
Yeah, for me, I think, not to oversimplify relationship, but for me, probably the three pillars I would say of like healthy, successful marriages. One would be community. Again, if you ever talk to me, you're going to hear community over. And I believe couples need other couples around them who are also, invested in their marriage, who are trying to grow. We need that outside accountability. There's just going to be times. The reality is, there's going to be times when I don't want my wife holding me accountable because I don't feel like acting right. And if she doesn't have some other people that she can call me into account with, my community, she's going to be in a tough place, right? She's trying to get me to change behaviors and that are hurting the relationship. I'm not willing to. What does she do? For a lot of people, the answer is nothing. I think if you have community, you appeal to your community. And so there are going to be times we need outside support and accountability. And I think community is huge. I think intentionality, like I said before, is a key component of a healthy relationship. Not everything is going to happen organically, naturally, spontaneously. If we want a great marriage, we have to plan for and do the things on a regular basis that create a great marriage. So I'll suggest to couples a lot of times who don't have a regular rhythm to their relationship to, at the very least, start with, weekly date night. I suggest a weekly staff meeting to talk about, some of the business side of marriage. And then, a couple times of quick connection, maybe 15, 20 minutes, a couple nights a week or in the morning, depending on where they are, just phones down, where, either watching TV together, playing a game together, just talking, whatever it might be that makes couples feel connected, so that there's a regular rhythm of, we're getting together simply to connect. And that's why the staff meeting is helpful, because what happens with a lot of marriages is the business side takes over. And pretty soon, all our interactions are logistical, problem solving, conflict resolving, running the household and family. And we've stopped doing the things that we love to do when we're dating, which is just hang out and have fun and do some of that kind of stuff. So I think community, intentionality. And then the third leg for me is just personal responsibility. And that goes back to what I said about being healthy. If there's some stuff in marriage that we are having relational problems because I got some individual stuff, I think we each have a responsibility I got to own my stuff, and I got to figure out why I'm overreacting, why I'm exaggerating, why, this habit or this vice or this attitude or this addiction or whatever, is preventing me from having a healthy relationship. And so a lot of couples fight relationally, but it's really a individual issue that is causing the problems. And so, some couples I even counsel, I'll tell them, hey, If I see one or both of them kind of have an individual issue that I think is severe enough, I'll tell them we're going to put a pause on the marriage counseling. Let's just agree that the marriage is going to suck for the next 6 months while you individually go get some counseling, or get some help in this area. Because otherwise you just run in quicksand. I mean, we can try all kinds of relational stuff, but at the end of the day, you're wounded, you're hurt. And, if you're emotionally, or, for lack of a better metaphor, if you're emotionally or psychologically in a wheelchair and I'm asking you to get up and run with your spouse, it's not going to work real well. So let's get you healthy. Then when you're a little healthier, now let's come back and, try to work on some relational dynamics. So yeah, I would say community, intentionality, personal responsibility are three of the kind of key pillars that are important for healthy marriage.
One of the things that someone made aware to me early this year, they said the 7-year itch. I never knew about the 7-year itch. And apparently he says about every 7 years, there's something that spouts up in a relationship or a marriage that is going to make or break the relationship. Do you think that is something that exists, or that's something that's fictitious?
Yeah, really the 7-year itch has traditionally been not every 7 years, but most marriages that fail do so in the first 7 years. And so that's kind of where that came from. The majority of divorces occur within the first 7 years. And so that's where the kind of 7-year itch is like, oh man, I don't know if we can make it. Conversely, if you read some research, what I just talked about, a couple finding their relationship rhythm, a lot of experts say it takes couples 8 to 12 years to find their relationship rhythm. And so you can see like the 7-year itch is like, man, we quit. We were almost there to find. Now, I don't think if you're willing to get some counseling, just invest in your marriage, whether it's taking marriage classes regularly. Again, I think part of our rhythm has got to be investing in our relationship, right? I think couples should do a marriage class once a year, have a counselor that they see more regularly when they're stuck, and, maybe quarterly or twice a year for check-ins when things are good. I think, 4-day weekend retreats or intensives, there should be a rhythm of that kind of stuff. But I think if you're willing to do some of those, you can find a rhythm for your relationship way quicker than 8 years. And it's really about identifying what is important for the two of you to feel connected. And that's where stuff like love languages and top emotional needs and all those things come in, to understand, how does my spouse experience love so I can do those specific things? Because a lot of times we feel like we're putting in effort, but our spouse is looking at us like we don't do anything for them, which is even more frustrating, because like here's a list of things I'm doing and they're sitting over here saying you don't love me, and I'm like, well, I did these 10 things, but I'm doing the wrong things, right? And so part of it is learning your spouse and understanding what they need, and then creating that rhythm, that weekly rhythm, where it's like, hey, we do X together on Mondays, and a couple of nights a week after the kids are in bed we do this, and on Sundays we do this. And I think if you establish a rhythm early on and stay with it, the intentionality just becomes, normal and a normal part of your rhythm. And I think you can avoid, quote, the 7-year itch, because we've created, because that, 7 years is the fun's worn off, you're usually in the child rearing stages, and research shows that traditionally marital satisfaction drops like 40 something percent with the birth of the first kid. That's the biggest hit to marriage satisfaction, is the birth of your first kid, because it's so consuming and the priorities switch. And, especially for the women, that tends to be, their focus. And so now the husband's sitting over here going, what about me? And then the wife feels like the husband doesn't care about the kid the way she does. And, you start getting all that stuff. So that's part of, I think, the 7-year itch, is you get that huge dip for those who have kids and reality hits. So yeah, I think is it real? It's real that the majority of divorces occur within the first 7 years. That's real. Whether it's some magical number itch, probably not. I think if you establish a rhythm and know where you're going and what you're focused on, it becomes a non-factor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just one of those things where it's coincidence. 7 years, it seems like, all right, in 7 years, something's going to happen in your relationship and you have to get a divorce. Well, that's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah, and you don't see a 14-year itch and a 21-year itch and a 28-year itch. So it's just, that's when many divorces happen, and there's a variety of reasons. Like I said, I think kids being one of the big reasons that causes the shift. But yeah, in a long-term relationship, my wife and I have been married 28 years. You're reinventing the relationship often. because what worked for us with no kids and both working didn't work for us with one kid, didn't work for us with three kids, didn't work for us with freaking teenagers, making the house crazy, isn't working for us now that two of the three are out of the house, right? And so you're constantly, having to reinvent and create new rhythms to keep the kind of relationship that you desire.
Yeah, the ability to pivot when life circumstances change, because I think some people, they just get stuck on old habits, old ways,
Oh
and
yeah.
they might say, well, it's, like we always been doing it this way. We always had date night on Friday. Why don't we have date night on Friday? Because our kids have like football or
Right.
basketball or
Friday
whatever
night
now, right?
football. Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, we can't do that anymore. How can we adjust? How can we pivot? So the rhythm does have to change. And I think that's so important to have that. And you said something really, really, really good, that people should do check-ins even when things are going good. Because I think people wait until things are broken until they
Mm-hmm.
say, well, we have to go see a counselor, right? This is not working, versus everything is good, right? Let's go for a check-in. Because I think that's going to be more beneficial for the long term, similar to how you get an oil change for your car. Yeah, your car is not on the side of the road, but you're going to get an oil change. And it's not because the red light told you, or the orange light, or whatever color light you have in your car for the oil.
Right.
But that light right there is not simply saying, well, your car is broken. It's saying, hey, we need to do some maintenance. And I think having an understanding that your relationship needs to have some type of maintenance, some level of maintenance, whether it be, date nights a week or a month, family conversations, putting your phone away, right? So just understanding the little different dynamics. How can we create small pockets of moments in our life where we just have the meaningful communication? And communication is so essential for a relationship, because if you don't communicate with each other, then you're just going to communicate yourself. And you're like, I have all these problems and I'm just keeping them to myself, and I'm just making them bigger problems. Because I always say, if you tell yourself something long enough, it becomes your truth. So if you believe that your partner is not showing up, then you're going to believe it. They're not showing up, and there's nothing I can do, because I've been telling myself that they can't show up or they're not showing up for 5 years. I never talked to my partner about it, but I've been telling it to myself. And eventually it comes to that point, that tipping point, where it's like, all right, I'm not happy. I'm leaving because this hasn't changed for 5 years or something like that. So we do have to understand that there is some level of maintenance in a relationship that we have to understand. And even if your relationship is good, do some maintenance work, do some check-ins. And if your relationship is bad, don't wait until the house is burned down or until you got the divorce papers. I know there's a story of a man who, I guess the relationship wasn't going good, and the wife was saying, I'm not happy. And the guy's like, okay, well, why are you not happy? And then she says why she's not happy. And then he goes, okay, well, he's like, I'm going to make some changes. So he thinks he makes some changes, right? She comes back to him, I'm not happy. And then he's like, okay, well, why are you not happy now? Right. So he, makes some more changes, right? Are those changes really happening? I don't know. Right. But eventually he finally gets the divorce papers. And then he goes, whoa, 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 what's happening here? Like, let's go see a counselor. Right. So he waited until the last moment until it was like, all right, I got the divorce papers, versus listening to her at that moment when she was saying that she's not happy. Right. Taking that time out to understand what's really going on. Similar to how, if you are in an environment, you want to check out your situation, situational awareness. So you look around, you're like, okay, cool, everything is nice. Versus, okay, that, like everything is not good, but I'm still going to operate like it is good. So it's important, especially having like a coach like you to help people is very important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's across the board, right? Whether it's our weight, finances, relationship, the longer you wait and the worse it gets, the more expensive and the harder it is to get out of that place, right? And so, especially in relationship, I mean, just having an outside person in your relationship, one, it should be normal. There's just too many people who are quote private, who don't want anybody in their business. And if you're dating and the person you're dating is private, leave. That's the biggest red flag for me. I mean, that's just they either don't want accountability or are unwilling to let anybody speak in their life is dangerous. But just having a third party suggest something automatically neutralizes a conversation, right? If I come to my wife and say, hey, I want to talk about, our intimacy, there's going to be like immediate defensiveness, right? Like, you're coming at me for something. If we go see a counselor and the counselor says, tell me about the intimacy, like, it's already neutral. I'm just doing what the counselor told me. It's not like me attacking you. And so just having somebody else, whether it's a class or a retreat or a counselor, suggest that you two do something together, neutralizes the conversation. So there's just so much value in having outside check-ins, counselors, a mentor couple, doing a class, anything that kind of forces you to, say, hey, let's take a look at this and let's talk about this, because it's our assignment. It now is not me versus you, but it's us trying to figure out this together. So yeah, I mean, we need that if you're trying to get fit. Having a fitness coach is great. If you're trying to work on your finances, getting a financial coach, life coach, whatever it is, just having somebody else come alongside you is helpful in any arena of life.
Definitely. And I'm a huge advocate in understanding that you can walk this path alone, but when you have company, it's so much better. And you can learn about your blind spots so much quicker. And the conversation that we had is a great starter for many people who are maybe understanding about relationships for the first time, teenagers, or maybe people who are getting into the aspect of really looking at what makes a relationship meaningful all the way up to marriage. And I encourage people to, listen to this episode not just once, but twice, because you're going to find so many different things that you're going to learn. And you might have developed habits in your own dating life or your own circumstance that you say, well, this is my life, when you can change your life. So there's not some final level that you have reached at this point, because you're going to always have to pivot, even in your relationships. We talked about it. The rhythm changes, and you have to understand that too. So right now, your rhythm might not be appropriate to finding that match. How can we get into that rhythm? What can be the skills that we have to learn? And there's so many different things that we have to know. And having Eric as a relationship coach is going to be essential almost, because if you are always just kind of going in blind, you're always going to get blindsided. So it's important to have a coach on your side and to have someone in your corner rooting for you for your success all the way up to marriage. So if I can from you, Eric, please share with us any last words, and then please tell the audience how they can find you.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with what you said. I think no matter what arena of life we're in, we certainly don't know everything. So getting a coach or counselor or whatever it is alongside of you is key. So yeah, probably the easiest thing to do is just go to alteredmarriage.com, and that's spelled ALTARED, marriage.com. And so you'll see I got a YouTube channel called Relation Shots where I put out relationship videos all the time. I've got free resources on there, consistently run marriage classes, dating classes, retreats. And so you name it, if there's any way that I can assist or be a part of somebody's relationship journey and help them get where they're trying to go, would love to do that.
Perfect. And I will put all of your links in the description box below so people can easily find you. And whether you're in the beginning of your relationship or you're all the way into marriage, there's going to be a need for a relationship coach. There's going to be a need for someone to mitigate and to do the maintenance work in your relationship. So if you're struggling, don't wait. Take action today. I want to thank my guest, Eric Wooten, for coming on Coaching in Session. Great conversation today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.